Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to talk about the vague terms of certain cosmological structures within the tiering system or dimensional tiering. I've seen a lot of people be confused about the concept of a megaverse or metaverse, depending on what type of megaverse or metaversal you use. So basically, the reason why they got confused is because Marvel and DC. Because Marvel and DC actually uses the word megaverse in very vague terms, which confuses a lot of people. So to simplify it, this is just my opinion, and an opinion on that video about a person who make a scale beyond the universe thing, in which they say that the megaverse is just like a 20 plus 11 dimensional structure of sorts. So basically, like to simplify it, basically the megaverse is basically like a 21 dimensional structure which contains an infinite number of 11 dimensional multiverses. That's how it works basically. And a gigaverse is basically a 31 dimensional structure that contains infinitely many megaverses, and the teraverse is basically a 41 dimensional structure that contains infinitely many 31 dimensional gigaverses, and so on and so forth. And the guy that scales in that scale beyond the universe comparison video, he basically says it's basically about the 20 plus 11 and so on and so forth basically. And also, the reason why the megaverse is used is due to the fact that it's just to imply an even bigger multiverse. Like, in the imaginary axis, you see, Tyler says that a multiverse is just another word to describe everything. But I feel like a multiverse is basically, just contains infinite universes in 11 dimensions. And a megaverse is basically a 21 dimensional structure, and so on and so forth. So I think that this is just my entire opinion. A megaverse is basically just that, a 21 dimensional structure. And I think that using a multiverse on like your fictional work, for example, but it contains other versatile structures like the God sphere within DC, despite them calling the entire DC cosmology below like the source itself as a multiverse. People will get confused by that because they think that they think that the modern realm is basically 11 dimensional, like that. It's basically a little bit confusing. So I decided to go with the omniverse and outerverse and hyperverse. That's how you have to logically use it in order to differentiate between verses. There can be verses that is limited by dimensions, there are verses that transcends dimensions, and there are verses that transcends that are outerversal, and so on and so forth. And also, the person that uses that made that scale beyond the universe video actually got it from the Verse and Dimensions wiki. And when I got there, I realized that there is a ton of cosmological structures and a lot of abstract and cosmic entities that are way beyond omniversal. Like, I'm serious. So take the Godverse, for instance, within the Verse and Dimensions wiki. So basically, there's the Creator, the Destroyer, and Hyperman. So basically, a Hyperman actually came from some sort of alien race of sorts from an alternate timeline that the technology advanced really fast. And Hyperman at that time was immortal, but is just a mortal, not an immortal, just a mortal. Just follow me here, people. And when he was just a mortal being with a finite amount of life, he basically about to transcend above the omniverse to the point where he reached the Godverse, which is outside of the omniverse itself. And also, there's a lot of cosmological structures. Like there's the outside, which is basically a void that surrounds the omniverse and the Godverse, and then there's the beyond and unknown space where the Super God Council lives, and also the Transcendentem, where my favorite character Fantasia, the fourth strongest within the Transcendentem, actually lives. If you don't know, check out his website and check out his wiki. He's really awesome, to be honest. Like, he's at least one of my favorite characters within the Verse and Dimensions wiki. The other one is also another structure known as the Transcendentem Continuum of sorts. and it's also home to some sort of guardian who basically guards, the fifth wall. I don't know what the fifth wall is. Basically, the fourth wall is basically, beings that separates fiction from real life. Basically, I'm sorry if I go off topic there for a bit, but at the end of the day, a megaverse is just, a 21-dimensional structure, and that's it. It's just a 21-dimensional structure, not some kind of hyperversal or outerversal structure. It's just a 21-dimensional structure, still being limited by spatial and temporal dimensions, or spatial temporal rules for that matter. So I'm going to go off topic here for a bit, but like the abstract beings and cosmic beings within the verse and dimensions wiki are really overpowered. I'm not gonna lie. Also, I'm surprised that there is not a lot of people who actually talked about verse and dimensions wiki. And if you don't know what the verse and dimensions wiki is, it's basically a wiki which is basically its own like fictional universe with its own entities, but beyond omniversal. So basically, there are a lot of entities that are way beyond omniversal at this point. So you see, the transcendentum and the transcendentum continuum, or the outside, or the barrel, which is basically some sort of monocosm or something, it basically are beyond omniversal at this point. So I realized that verse and dimensions wiki treats low outerversal to high outerversal being, like high 1A beings, as like fodder, and these beings that are above outerversal but still below omnipotent is a being that is between boundless and high 1A, high outerversal for that matter. So like you can't just apply outerversal to a being that is already beyond outerversal or omniversal. So like any outerversal entity from Marvel or DC would get obliterated. Like seriously, like there's the Super God Council who stands infinitely above the outside, and the outside stands infinitely above the barrel, which stands infinitely above the Godverse, which stands outside, the entire omniverse. Yeah, that's how powerful the Super God Council are. They live within the beyond, which is an unknown space. No, not the beyond realm from DC. This beyond space is way above that, like way above omniversal. So basically, like if SCP-3812, for instance, like transcends infinite hierarchies of infinite narratives, Cosmic Armor Superman can do the same thing, but instead of transcendence, it's rather adaptation, since he can adapt to any threat, including Mandrake himself. So basically, SCP-3812 and the Cosmic Armor Superman would basically fight for eternity, and it will be a stalemate, since Superman will adapt to SCP-3812's transcendence, and SCP-3812 will transcend the Cosmic Armor Superman's adaptation, but they will keep adapting and transcending each other. So basically, it's a tie. But any being that treats omniversal as like fodder is a pretty powerful verse in its own right. Like seriously, they also have the box, and also I've recently discovered a YouTuber who has subscribed. He actually created a video about SCP-3812 versus the True God, since the True God is basically the one above all equivalent in the Verse and Dimensions wiki, and is basically omnipotent. And the only thing that is above the box is basically the Imaginarium, which is the mind of the True God, and the Realium is basically just another aspect of the box itself. And basically, like, the Verse and Dimensions wiki is a pretty OP verse. You should go check their website. Besides, like, you can't just apply old school dimensional tiering to these type of guys, because they're beyond outerversal and omniversal. So any omniversal being in Marvel and DC would get slapped into oblivion, basically. Only omnipotent beings like the one above all, or the writer from DC Comics would in fact defeat some of them. But again, there is also the True God, so it's a tie. So if we exclude omnipotent beings, then the Verse and Dimensions wikis, like cosmic and abstract beings, would win this easily, since they have reality warping far beyond omniversal, including the barrel and the outside, which is the void surrounding the Godverse and Omniverse. And basically, like, I think the outside can fit infinitely many Omniverses and Godverses, but I think the outside, like, is below, like, the barrel. Sorry about the previous mistake. Also, the outside is basically like below the barrel. Like seriously, the reason why is because I look at that beyond universe size comparison. Like the outside is still infinitely below the barrel. So since the outside can fit like an infinite amount of omniverses or godverses or something like that, and the barrel plex would fit infinitely many more. So yeah, basically that's how overpowered they are. And there's also the beyond, which is an unknown space and contains beings known as the Super God Council, and I forgot their names. And there's also an evil being within the beyond space, and it's basically the one that opposes the Super God Council, and it's basically the embodiment of what the Super God Council opposes. And next we got the Transcendentum, which is basically infinitely above like the beyond space, and is where my favorite character Fantasia lives in, which is basically it's like the fourth strongest being within the Transcendentum. And in the Transcendentum continuum, there is like these guardians who basically guard the fifth wall basically. And I don't know what the fifth wall is. Like I haven't read the wiki much these days, but you get the idea. There's also the barrel, and also above that there's the barrel plex, the barrel plexian, and the barrel plexianth. That's how it works. And there's also my temporary space, which is a void of sorts that is infinitely above, or just above the barrel plexianth. So yeah, they're basically that overpowered. And metempric space is still like infinitely low. Let me know if the metempric space is infinitely above, or just above like the barrel plexianth. If it's infinitely above the barrel plexianth, then any being that lives there is basically a very very overpowered. They would like solo the majority of fictional universes that has no omnipotent beings within them. And we also got the box, which basically contains everything that is possible and impossible. And we also got the realium, which is basically everything that is possibly real and impossibly real. But it's still another aspect of the box, so it's basically the same thing. And also, there's also the Imaginarium, in which is basically which is basically like a separate type, like it's basically another half of the so-called Omniumniverse. The Omniumniverse is basically like splits into two parts. It splits into two realms of sorts. That is the Realium and the Imaginarium. So the Imaginarium is basically not a verse, a realm, or anything like that. Not a space or a verse. It just is. And many commenters in that type of wiki speculate that it might be the mind of the true God, since everything is located within his mind. So any type of omniversal level beings, excluding omnipotent beings, like any powerful like non-omnipotent omniversal beings, just get slapped into oblivion by these guys. And the only thing that I have an idea can beat them are beings that are above them. Like we have to exclude omnipotence here, just so to make the fight fair. So any non-omnipotent omniversal being can just and they can just obliterate those non-omnipotent omniversal beings from Marvel and DC into oblivion. And the only thing that I know that can defeat them is like the one above all and the writer from DC Comics. And also even then they still have to deal with the true God, and the Omniverse I think is the mind of the true God. But I think that the Imaginarium is the mind of the true God. But I got confused, since the Omniverse is split into two realms, that is the Realium and the Imaginarium. So they could possibly be the mind of the true God, I don't know. But what I know is that the Imaginarium is the mind of the true God itself. So yeah, the true God is basically the omnipotent supreme being of the verse and dimensions. Sorry if I go a lot more off topic than I expected. I think I'm just going to add in the title, the misunderstanding of cosmological structures within dimensional theory and versus debates, and the verse and dimensions wikis, cosmology and cosmic and abstract entities. So I'm gonna add that to the title. So anyways, guys, make sure you okay. Sorry for saying. So, anyways, guys, hopefully you guys enjoy it. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications, and peace out.